Have you ever been on a day out with your family and things didn't quite go to plan? Well, unfortunately for the visitors of Amagi Brilliant Park, they experienced this very same feeling. I want you to imagine Disneyland for a moment. Imagine the lights, imagine the characters, imagine the smiles on the children's faces. Now think about the complete opposite of that and you have Amagi Brilliant Park. Somehow, this rather dismal land of nightmares has to meet a quota of 500,000 visitors in the next 3 months, otherwise the park will get shut down. But there is a slight twist. The park is run by a bunch of people who come from another world called Maple Land. I prefer Honeyland, am I right? And the source of the people of Maple Land's energy and spirit is their visitors' fun and joy. But it makes you wonder, for people who thrive off fun and joy, how could they create somewhere so utterly miserable? Oh, and they'll all die if the park closes, I just forgot to mention that. So the main character here, Kanye, and yes he is named after the rapper, is forced to go on a date with Sento, who works at the park. She takes him around the park on possibly the worst date ever, and then takes him to the ruler of Maple Land, Princess Latifah. It sounds like such a crappy title, doesn't it? Ruler of the Seven Seas, ruler of the kingdom. Nope, ruler of Maple Land. Latifah asks Kanye to become the manager of the park because they thought a teenage boy would be the best option for the position rather than a trained professional, but after some umming and ahhing he eventually agrees. However, Kanye isn't prepared for the sheer amount of issues this place had. Let's take Mr. Mofle here. He is the main mascot of the park. He is the equivalent of Mickey Mouse. Now imagine going to Disneyland and you go to meet one of the Mickey Mouse characters in the park to take a picture, but instead of a picture, you get a punch in the face. Well, that's what you get from Amagi Brilliant Park's wonderful main mascot. And then there's Sento, you remember, the girl that Kanye went on a date with at the start. Well, there's one small problem with her. She threatens everybody with a gun. This has begun to sound like some of the places I've worked at before. So Kanye has some work to do here. The first rule he implements is not having Fridays off. Now imagine this, your very existence depends upon your business being successful. You'd be working hard, right? You'd put in as much time and effort as possible, right? Nah, Mr. Mofle prefers to have a pint and a piss up on a Friday night. But as time goes on, Kanye begins to solve each problem one by one. In episode 6, for example, they're lacking enough staff, so they decide to hold interviews for jobs. An assortment of people from all walks of life apply, and each and every one of them are hired on the spot. Again, this is beginning to sound like some of the places I've worked at before. Or in episode 3, when Kanye decides to drum up more interest in the park by recording a promotional video, using Latifah and Sento wearing bikinis to draw people's attention. 10 out of 10 fan service right there. And finally, after nearly falling at the last hurdle after being 252 visitors short in the few remaining minutes, all of the staff come together and call everybody they know to come along to the park, and they manage to get over the 500,000 threshold. Happy days. Honestly, I have a lot of love for this series. As a child, places like theme parks are magical places that you have the time of your life at, but Amagi Brilliant Park gives you the reality of these places. The characters you see around the park are in fact people who are miserable and paid minimum wage. Things constantly go wrong that you would never see as a visitor, and some of the actors have as much talent as a plank of wood. And yet through the storytelling of how Amagi manages to turn things around, the anime still evokes a sense of magic and wonder that you felt as a child through its fantasy elements. Characters like Mr. Mofle are actually real and not people in costumes, well, I think anyway. Kanye discovers parts of the park that hadn't been used in years and goes on an adventure through them, much like you would at one of the attractions of a theme park. You have impromptu pirate fights that aren't part of the script, but you wouldn't think twice about it if you were a kid there. And then there's Princess Latifah, who needs saving just like a classic childhood story. It makes you want to visit a place like that and have a magical time just like when you were a child. However, the series wasn't without its faults. I felt like the characters themselves could have been explored more. Kanye was a child star, but that's just about all we know. It wasn't expanded much further than that. Sento worked as a guard back in Maple Land, but again we don't know anything more. And then there's Maple Land itself. Could we have had more flashbacks to characters' pasts in Maple Land? Could we have learnt more about what it's like there? Could some past trauma have happened to one of the characters in Maple Land, and through helping turn the fortunes around at Amagi, it helps them get over that trauma, as an example for a plot point. But the thing that disappointed me the most was the romance. Sento clearly had some feelings for Kanye, but it was never really explored further than some internal conflict that never got resolved. How about a potential love triangle between Kanye, Sento and Princess Latifah? Again, I just feel like this was another opportunity to deepen the story that went to waste. Perhaps this is due to the absence of a second season, but who knows? But despite these things, I still love the series. Through Kyoto Animation's wonderful character designs, backgrounds and animation, I feel like they've really brought to life the magic that is Amagi Brilliant Park. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much.